Mike again, talking about going to the moon and doing it without crashing things back into the Earth or landing them. Well, essentially, we're crashing them now anyway. We're crashing starships into the ocean. We're crashing, Falcon Stage 2s into the ocean. We shouldn't be doing that. Falcon Stage 2 is an excellent vehicle for translunar injection, either on its own to send a moon buggy up as something that just transports people and then back, an empty starship that's full of cargo or that can be filled with cargo, and eventually become a tanker. You can, but the key to that is do what they were planning on doing for Mars, and put fuel plants, fuel processing on the lunar surface, so that it can process regolith into hydrogen and into oxygen. Have one ship with the hydrogen, have one starship with the oxygen, have these then go back to Earth orbit to then provide fuel to operate in Earth orbit, including setting up a starship, attaching boosters that are refueled from lunar regolith. The boosters being Falcon Stage 2s. You can set up with Falcon Heavies if you want, and then you put your people in that, and you attach maybe some modules so it'll be landed on their own. Just put little jets on them on the lunar surface, and really quickly you can start to put something on the moon before 2030. I mean, the first, and test gravity. That's the big thing, because although being on the moon is good in its own right, not as a way to live on Mars. The way to live on Mars is to have a space station rotating with gravity around Mars, with all the people you need to have a space colony around Mars with their families. All the people, all the food growing, orbiting, so it's and the scientists, of course, and the equipment to then land people and then bring them back up, rather than landing colonies on Mars, but to keep the colonies in orbit until they're ready. But have JPL in space around Mars. But to do that, you've got to start converting some regolith into hydrogen and oxygen, transporting it down, get it there as however you think is best, and then once you start sending starships back fully loaded as fuel tankers, then you can have a vigorous orbital activity to capture these things in orbit, rather than dropping them down into the ocean. We don't need more pollution. We don't need to drop anything into. If you got the fuel, you can just put your space station museum on the moon. But quit dropping stuff on the planet. You've spent millions of dollars per kilogram to get it up there. Leave it up there, or take it to the moon. Falcon Stage 2 should turn into injector ships. You can refuel them, put people, put facilities, or starships. Fill a starship up with material, not with people, and then and send I guess you could have a crew liner, but have it be a crew liner that doesn't come from the Earth's surface until you're really sure about it, but then get them there with lunar produced fuel, and injection with refurbished Falcon Stage 2s. So, yeah, that's never land a Starship. Forget about the heat tiles. It makes life so much easier. But so there's 2 jobs before you start doing this. One, develop something to make oxygen and then hydrogen, separate things, from the lunar surface, and then bring it back into Earth orbit. Some Earth orbit doesn't have to be near, because you've got the fuel. You can go from whatever part of space is good for that. You can clear out the junk layer in medium Earth orbit. There's a whole lot of things you can do if you've got the fuel there, and you've got the people who want to stay there for a while. So that's, job 1 is getting the fuel from the moon to the Earth, and the other job is gravity. Again, you figure out how to make gravity artificially that doesn't screw up your inner ear and give everybody vertigo, or leave them in microgravity. And we now know what the consequences are. They're dire. You screw with their brains. If somebody is up in microgravity too long, their water balance changes, and it's just, I've seen the reports have been on. It's like nasty. You can't leave people like that. There should be no orbital laboratory in microgravity anymore, except for like brief experiments. The gravity should be, people should live under some kind of gravity, at least Martian gravity, if not full Earth gravity, but enough so the physiological damage stops. And then get the soil, make it and just you can shoot the material up, the modules, and then convert the modules, both Starship modules and tug modules, also known as Falcon 2. Set it up there, have a Falcon, have a Starship converted into a hangar. You take off the engines to be used later for transporting colony stations to the orbits of planets, and make hangar bays. Do your work, converting things from, or doing fueling, or looking at fixing starliners were broken. A garage. Maybe a habitat module to go with the garage, and fuel modules and all that. But don't put anything back into. Once you put something in orbit, never take it out. And that includes the junk. Collect the junk. Sort it and use it as raw materials for something else. And put enough stuff up there that's real that you don't need to have, these orbiting Starlinks. Have them be let the Starlinks be attached to some kind of habitable structure. You could do that eventually. We'll see if Starlink survives, if it gets enough customers. I've been involved in situations where that kind of thing didn't survive too well. So we shall see. I'm not going to wish SpaceX ill with their Starlink project, but I don't think the orbital cloud is sustainable. So So just the key point. When you put tons and tons of booster up there, and Starships and Stage 2s, leave them in orbit. Again, the visual, have big Starships bringing back the fuel, and then and Stage 2s injecting things back into or up to the moon, or up to as working space tugs. For injection, and smaller ships that can go and do things. Also make a lunar hopper, something that can go up and down from a Starship station or Lunar Gateway if you really want to do that. Lunar Gateway and Starship aren't compatible. I've seen the estimates. You know, Angry Astronaut and other places show that you can't dock a Starship to Lunar Gateway. And if you've got a good enough system if you put people permanently on the moon, and that's not as hard as it looks. You know, you take those modules and you put them down there, and have, again, injection ships that were once Falcon Stage 2s with fuel from the moon. You don't have to have a space station orbiting the moon. The moon becomes your space station, and then you have a moon buggy a jumper to go up and down and refuel it and use it again and use it again. A reusable lunar excursion module to pop back to personnel carrier. So, yeah, 3 elements. Plus some designed in habitats, but 3 main elements. You know, 4 main elements. Stuff that stays on the moon, you know, custom built. Starships hauling fuel and cargo, and then injector ships that were Falcons, Falcon Stage 2s. It's a better system. And it's a system. It's not, don't consider, you know, it's a systemized thing that you can put together. I mean, I've just given you the outline. I've given you the requirements. You know, if you know somebody in SpaceX and you're watching this, send it to them. You know, what about it? If you watch my stuff, show this to SpaceX. Or, you know, and anybody can build a Starship-like thing. Although I think probably SpaceX is the people to use. Just forget landing them. Forget landing big things. Leave them in orbit. So, yeah. Give it to SpaceX. Give Sierra a piece. Give Boeing a piece of this. They can all make different things, and keep moving. It should not be a little bitty project, because if it looks like a good plan and not like a science project, you will get political will behind it. You can ask for a bigger budget, put enough bodies in motion, making things to go to the lunar surface, or to Martian orbit or Jovian orbit, and you will get funding. Take it out of the defense budget. You know, after Ukraine and Gaza are taken care of, I don't see how it's going to keep. You know, we need this industrial structure to not be for space instead of weapons. There's small things that need to happen, because Putin's not going to live forever, and when he goes, I don't think Russia's going to hold together. You know, there's some people who say, oh, it's the you know, it's going to be Trump, or it's going to change. You know, the U.S. is going to collaborate. No, they're the people who have predictions about something falling apart. That applies better to Russia than the U.S. America's going to hold together. We may regionalize, but what's going to collapse is the Soviet Federation, and it should. When Putin's gone, there will be rebellion, and people will say, "Nah, it's enough," and just withdraw from the Federation. And there won't be a Russian military to keep them there, because they've killed the Russian military in Ukraine. So yeah, and that should happen soon. Just interpreting other people's stuff, impressions. That's the most logical thing. So take that money that we're going to send for the Ukrainian war and eventual Russian war and Chinese war, and use it for space. Plenty of money. So, and plenty of people who would rather do that than make weapons. Guarantee inside of every weapons maker there's a space geek. So, you know, and you can't use those space geeks for anything but space or defense. Take away the defense, put them in space, everybody's happy. Okay.